Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Southern Outdoorsmen podcast. Today, we're doing a throwback episode to an episode we did with Mr. Robert Carter from South Georgia about 6 years ago. We've been doing the podcast for about 8.5 years now. And in that period of time, we've only got about 300 or so episodes that have been out on YouTube. A lot of our past episodes haven't made it to YouTube, so a lot of you have not seen or heard any of these old episodes. And this is a fantastic one. This is one of our favorites from in the past. Mr. Robert Carter is a traditional bow hunter from South Georgia, hunts a lot of public land, is extremely successful, and he's a great woodsman. He's been hunting for over 40 years with traditional archery, and there's a lot of great information to get out of this episode. So every now and then we want to throw these episodes back out that haven't seen, the light of day in about 5 or 6 years. So it's a great one. Mr. Robert Carter, South Georgia. You're going to really enjoy it. And now let's turn it on over to the interview.
We have a public land killer on for you, another guy from the great state of Georgia, who's actually referred to us by one of our favorites of all time, Glenn Solomon, the late, great Glenn Solomon, referred this fella to us. The fella is Robert Carter. Robert, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing really good. It's deer season, so I'm doing a lot better than I was like a month ago. Ginger Bow Hunter, Mr. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm so pumped for this weekend. Got Tennessee coming up, so I am pumped to get out there. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. Yeah, if anybody can't tell, we're doing this over a three-way phone call rather than our usual conference call thing, because our conference call thing doesn't want to work tonight. But at any rate, Robert, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you hunt, and I guess your hunting story that got you to this point.
All righty. Well, I live in southeast Georgia here. I hunt a lot of river bottom land. I've hunted my whole life. I grew up in a family of hunters, but none of them hardly were deer hunters. I had a couple uncles that got me started deer hunting. Probably I was around 14 maybe at the time, and I've been bow hunting since I was 18, and I'm 58 now, so that's a pretty good while. But I don't know. I've always been fascinated with bows. I've hunted all that time with trad bows except for 3 or 4 years, and I'm just an addict. I love to hunt anything that moves with a stick bow.
I hear that, man. Yeah, the stick bow is something I've been fascinated with. And there was a year in high school where I just picked one up and hunted with it, and I almost killed a spike. And then I was like, man, this is hard. And then I just picked up the compound again. But I really want to get back to trad bow hunting. So I got to imagine with a trad bow, I mean, what's your typical shot distance with that thing?
I set up for 15 yards or less. I don't like to shoot long shots.
Mm-hmm.
I can, walking around a 3D range, I can kill rubber deer at 30 yards pretty consistent. But my average shot is usually 12 yards or less. Last year I killed 12 deer and 6 hogs. My average shot was under 12 yards, right at 12 yards.
Man, that's what I'm talking about. Get them close. Out of curiosity, which I promise we'll get into hunting tactics here in a second. Out of curiosity, what's your arrow setup like? Are you shooting like a real heavy setup?
I do. I shoot around 45-pound bows. I don't shoot heavy bows anymore. And I've been doing this a long time, and the neck and shoulder is telling that. So, and my arrow weight, I shoot around anywhere from a 500, depends on what bow I'm using, but between a 550 to a 600 grain arrow.
That's what I'm talking about. I know Jacob's into that kind of stuff. Jacob's trying to build a real heavy setup.
Yeah, I shoot big broadheads as well. I shoot big Simmons broadheads, I think they're 1 9/16 wide, big 2 blades. They penetrate good with that heavy arrow.
Yeah, Jacob, which one of those do you shoot? You shoot at Simmons, right?
I shoot all kinds of crap through my compound because it all shoots the same. I've got some Simmons Makos, which are just 100 grain heads. They're you would ask me, I forgot what the cutting diameter is, but it's a main 2 blade when it's 2 bleeder blades on it. But it's nothing like those. I'd love to get a tree shark on a 106 or on a 600 grain arrow coming out of a compound bow at 70 70 pounds, I think that would be wicked. But
what front shoulder?
yeah, no. But anyways, but no, that's really cool. Those cinnamon broadheads are freaking sweet. Anyone that hasn't seen them before, if you see them, you're like, oh my god, they look nasty. Look super nasty, especially behind a heavy arrow. So that's awesome, Robert. You hunt with that setup. Robert, how long have you been hunting public land?
Probably around 30 years, a long time.
Awesome. And in that time frame, pretty much strictly with that trad bow, with your stick bow, correct?
Yeah. I hunted with a rifle for a little while and bow hunted as well, but it's been 25 or 30 years since I killed a deer with a rifle. It's been a long time.
Well, I was going to say, what's it like when you're hunting public land, in South Georgia, especially kind of getting started with, hunting with first hunting with a rifle and a stick bow, but really hunting with a stick bow a lot. What was that learning curve like for you to be able, consistently start getting on deer and actually be able to get, shots throughout the season?
Number one, I don't hunt when they have rifle hunts on public land. It's pretty much a circus around here. I don't go to them. I hunt bow hunts only. I hunt archery hunting and sometimes a primitive weapons hunt. I have a number of management areas, around me, and there's always something archery going on at least one of them. Early on, I didn't know what I was doing like anybody beginning, and I would hunt tracks and trails and this sort of thing. And then I actually remember reading an article by Ben Lee a long time ago, and he was talking about hunting persimmons. I forget what magazine, it was some hunting magazine. And then I started looking for persimmons in the swamp, and then crap, I found some, and deer were killing them. And so I did like old Ben Lee said, and started climbing on persimmons. And naturally, I climbed too far away from them. And it's with any kind of bow, there's a learning curve. And then I finally decided, I said, if I don't kill a deer, it'll be because I run him off because he's too close. It won't be because I missed him. So I began setting up for 12, 15-yard shots, and my recovery ratio was like top notch after that. And then I spooked some deer that were close to me, but overall, when I could see one, I could kill him.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I love getting close to deer like that. And that's kind of a thing that I'm going through this year as well, where I'm just trying to get more comfortable setting up that much closer to the deer, especially with the compound. Like there's that temptation to kind of set up, a little bit back because you have a little bit more of that distance advantage, but I'm not that good with a bow. So I'm like, man, who am I kidding? I really should probably be shooting at them like 20 and in. So, let's kick things right off here with kind of some early season talk, nice and timely. I've been riding the struggle bus a little bit till yesterday on the early season. I'm curious to hear as to early season tactics. You talk about you like to hunt feed trees and stuff, such as persimmons, and I assume oaks and stuff too. Can you kind of walk us through what your early season hunts look like?
All right, in my early season, I'll start in February. Just say I'm going to a new public land property, and we actually recently got one a couple of years ago over there. I'll walk in February while I'm pig hunting and try to find every persimmon I can. You can see them from a long ways off. They're almost black in the swamp. And mind you, there's two kinds of persimmon. There's the kind that grows up on the higher land, fence row type stuff, and there's the black trees that look like a light pole in the swamp. The ones up top drop later than the ones below. The ones in the swamp will drop the first week of bow season. You can kill deer on them. So anyway, I'll locate a bunch of persimmons, and then in August, when it's small game, there again pig hunting, I'll go around with my binoculars and find the ones that have a lot of fruit on them. Right when it's time to hunt, then I go recheck the ones. You've already cut the number in half probably from the ones that had fruit and the ones that didn't. I'll check the ones that are actually feeding, and I'll determine which one I hunt by naturally the one with the most sign, the one in the thickest cover, and the one that has the most consistent wind.
Man, you stole my question. I was about to ask if you related them to thick cover.
Yeah, I'd rather hunt really thick stuff. I like to hunt thick. You want a deer to come in there, those last minute almost dark deer, they pretty tough. I want him to come in there about 5, 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Be back at the truck before dark.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So before we had you on, we've had a string of guys who are just public land killers like yourself who get out there and they just know what to look for and they get it done, and people that are woodsmen. And even in the short time I've been talking to you just now, I can tell that you're a woodsman. Like something like you're kind of guy who doesn't really know a whole lot about the woods. He might know about deer, but he doesn't know about the woods. Isn't going to know that thing about, the two different types of persimmons and that kind of stuff. And people sometimes are like, well, what would knowing trees, how would that help me that much? And I mean, that's a pretty good example of it right there. But one thing that has been consistent with everybody we've had on since Glenn is that all y'all killers like thick cover. I mean, we are beating a dead horse, man. Everybody that gets on here who really knows what they're doing hunts that thick cover. So I'm really curious to know, what is thick cover to you? What does that look like?
When I'm climbed on a hot tree, I can't see 40 yards.
Okay, so you can't see 40 yards while you're up in the tree.
Right. I mean, that's the perfect place for me. You can, and it don't have to be that way. Sometimes you can climb in a spot. You want it thick for the deer. The deer is the one that needs to feel secure. And if you're in like a big palmetto flat, I mean, you can climb and see 200 yards as long as it's thick under there where the deer feels secure.
Mm-hmm.
And reeds, I like to hunt around a lot of river cane, things like that. I mean, anywhere thick is good. Thicker is better.
Yeah. Now, I love that you're saying that, because I finally, me and my buddy Michael finally located like a nice thick ridge that is a lot like you're talking about, which we'll cover that in the intro or the outro after we finish up with you. But so these thickets, out of curiosity, can you find them on a map, or is it something that you're really just looking at boots on the ground?
No, it's boots on the ground. You're not going to find them on a map.
Yeah. Oh, I relate, because this thicket that we recently found, we originally marked this spot because of a nice saddle that led out of an old cutover, and then we got up there and figured out that, which is a long story, again, we'll get into it later, but that those hardwoods up on this ridge had been high graded, which means they came in and just cut all the really nice timber out and left kind of the crappy trees that wouldn't get as much money. And man, those hardwoods up there are thick as crap. I mean, on the ground you can't see 5 to 10 feet. And I had my best sit of the year yesterday on that kind of stuff. But kind of moving forward a little bit, once persimmons are kind of dried up, or maybe it's an off year for persimmons, what kind of other stuff are you looking for food wise?
I look for every now and then you can actually hunt some muscadines early, but they usually fall out, before bow season. But you sometimes can get a week on those. And then I start, and crab apples. You can look for crab apples as well. They'll be up, on the little bit higher ground. But then, I start looking for water oaks. Water oaks are dropping. I've killed on water oaks this year already. And, I start looking for hot water oaks. And, I hear people north of me that talk about the white oak drops real early, but our white oaks, they don't drop. And a white oak really has no bearing for me down here where we hunt. We have quite a few of them, but they don't make acorns a lot. And they don't, I very seldom hunt white oaks. But the water oak is, I kill more deer on water oaks than any other thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not really in southeast Georgia. I'm more in kind of central Georgia. But I've seen kind of the same thing. There's definitely a lot of white oaks there, but I have found very few white oaks that are dropping right now. And up to what I saw yesterday, I saw quite a few red oaks dropping yesterday, but it's mostly been water oaks down in the bottoms. I mean, they've just been raining for like 3 weeks now. I mean, it definitely seems like it's been the thing to get on. So it sounds like most of your stuff is pre-scouted pretty well. So are you ever going in blind to an area and just kind of walking until you find something?
I'll go into, it'll be areas I've already hunted, But like right now water oaks are dropping, I'll go in. I'm going to a management area tomorrow. Nothing don't happen, and I hadn't scouted it since August. But I'll go in with my stand on my back and just check water oak after water oak until I find a hot one and sit on it.
So what does a hot tree look like to you? What kind of sign do you need to see under that tree?
I can walk by it at 40 yards and see that it's on fire. I mean, I can. It'll be tore up underneath it. The leaves will be tore up. I'll find 3, 4, 5 piles of droppings under it. I mean, I'll just be able to tell that it's smoking. I won't climb a tree that don't have deer crap under it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds awesome. Now, Robert, or do you pretty much hunt? Guess you say like that feed tree tactic the whole season, or do you ever change up and try anything else? Later on in the season.
I'll hunt funnels. I'll climb. I mean, it goes in this order. I'll hunt persimmons and crab apples, then water oaks, red oaks, swamp chestnut, and then there's water oaks will drop pretty much all the way up to December around here, different trees. But I hunt a lot of funnels, meaning crossings between sloughs, creek crossings, and funnels around clear cuts, open areas, things like that.
Got you. Let's dive into that a little bit on just like, again, your thoughts on hunting funnels, just because your funnels, compared to someone that's hunting like more rolling hills and get more topography, I feel like yours is slightly different. No, really, it's not. But would you kind of give an example a little bit more in depth on some of these funnels, on like what someone can look for? You gave a really good one yesterday, which you may or may not want to talk about today, because I'm talking bodies of water. But like, how do deer use those funnels, especially when there's water involved?
I mean, I hunt like big oxbow lakes. There's an end to them somewhere, and around the end of a long oxbow, there'll be a funnel there. There'll be, you have creek crossings, beaver dams, and a lot of people hunt a funnel at a beaver dam where the dam is at. But a lot of the better hunting is at the other end of the backed up water, where it's usually a lot thicker right there. And there's usually a good funnel around that. Real thick cutovers. I'll hunt where say an oxbow, a slough runs into a cutover. It's usually really good in there. That'd be like kind of the only opening in the places where the slough is at, actually, in some real thick cover. There's a clear cut I hunt on a management area that is, I mean, you can't even walk through it, but you can get in those sloughs and get up in the heart of it and find the crossings on those sloughs.
Mm-hmm.
Really good hunting. You can see deer all day.
Oh wow! So you're like pushing up into into the bedding area, like via. Are you accessing by water, or are you like wading up that slough?
I go up the slough. I catch it when it's very little water in it, and this is late season stuff now. I don't like to do this early when I'm hunting food, and a lot of creek crossings. I got 2 lock-ons in creek crossings right now. I put them in there a couple of weeks ago, and I won't set them till the end of October. And I'll slip in there without scouting. I know they'll be good. You find a place like that. The way I find most of my funnels, you're walking through the woods doing your scouting whenever, and you see a good rub line coming around a slough, or you see a big trail crossing, and so I bet it's a good place to hunt. But I'd rather hunt food trees. But then when I got a time I can't find a food tree, there's just nothing hot, then I'll go set those places like that. And you find a good place to hunt by scouting, but you kill deer. I mean, you got to find the right tree by hunting, and you hunt a funnel enough and see deer coming through it. And for me, I want them 20 yards or less, preferably 15 or less. Hunting and watching deer a couple of times, and I know right where to climb. Then unless they cut the woods or something changes, it'll be good for a lifetime.
One thing I want to kind of jump back to a little bit is a minute ago you mentioned beaver ponds and how people will set up on deer crossing the dam. But correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that you're more likely to hunt the back of the pond where the water kind of ends, I guess. And typically the beavers have chewed everything out back there.
Yeah, I'll hunt the backside of it. It's usually a lot thicker there. And most people, if I do hunt the front side, I don't hunt the dam. I hunt down from it. Usually on down, it may be 100 yards will be where the really good crossing is at.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, that's not something that I've ever thought of. But we've always had. I've hunted beaver dams here and there, and we've always had luck on them. But I've never like fine tuned it, and maybe that's what I've been missing. But one more thing about the thick cover, by the way, when you're on ground level, looking at this thick cover, how far do you expect to see through it when it's good cover?
Man, I've had hogs at 10 yards and couldn't shoot them. I mean, it'll be thick. It'll be really thick.
Yeah, like rabbit hunting thick.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, talking a little bit about early season some more. When does your rut start?
The bucks will really be moving about the last week of October.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, but we have a messed up rut here around my house. They had there were no deer here very much, and they put deer from Illinois in here, and then they put some Illinois. Actually, they put 8 in the road I live on. My drive, it used to go straight into some big woods. They put 8. They turned 8 deer loose here in the 60s, and then they put a lot of island deer in here. They caught on Jaco Island and places like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there'll be a doe being chased by a buck third week of September, right now. And then you'll see them running them in December. It's kind of crazy.
Dang. Yeah, that is. I think a lot of people in the South could probably relate to that. A lot of us in Bama and Georgia, and I'm sure Mississippi too, have a weird, strange rut. So when you're kind of transitioning, I'll put it this way. When you're going from like leaves on to leaves off, like when leaves really start dropping and we're getting later into the fall, do you see like a hard shift in deer movement as far as the kind of places that they're hanging out?
Right now is our poorest time, I believe, and I think when the leaves begin to fall off, the deer movement really picks up. The colder weather, actually, the colder weather is what does it, and gets things stirring.
Do you see them shifting areas when the leaves start dropping?
Not they seem to go more in thicker cover, but not really. I mean, in the bottoms and places I hunt, there'll be pine thickets out in the middle of them. I always, when the swamp gets wide open like that, I tend to go more to thicker stuff to see more deer.
One thing I'd like to kind of have you go over, Robert, is would you mind kind of walking us through a hunt on one of these funnels that maybe is a memorable hunt for you, whether you shot a buck, a doe, a hog, it doesn't matter, but is there one that kind of jumps up at you as like, that would be a really good example of like kind of hunting these funnels?
Yeah, I would. I had a really good hunt on a funnel. Actually, a friend of mine found a funnel, Chris Bikes. He had, there's a management area we hunt. It has a real long lake. Around one end of it, they had clear cut some land on the other side of it that was maybe a 7-8 year old clear cut, and it's grown up into a really thick jungle. And deer were bedding in there, and then they were coming out into the open swamp to feed it, on the acorns and everything. All the feed was on the open side. And he located it, and he killed an awful 8-point where the end of the lake was at, and it narrowed up, and deer were pouring across there, coming in and out of that thicket. And then the next year, he had to work, so he gave me the blessing to go climb there. And I killed a 10-point out of a tree probably 5 yards from the one he killed the big 8-point out of. And since that time, we've both killed several deer, no more big bucks. And I put a friend there that also shot a really good buck there. And there's the sweet thing about it, when you have a funnel like that and it has a huge swamp chestnut right there that you climb under. it's just a funnel with food. It's a really good place to hunt.
I guess you're not hunting around much topography, right? Like, are you ever hunting like saddles or anything like that, or are you focused more on like what I would call like a flatland funnel, like where you're looking at generally other stuff in flatland?
Yeah, everything I hunt here is flat. I can tell a guy. I sent a guy one time. I told him, I said, go to the little oak ridge over there, and told him where to go climb. He was from up north, and he never could find the oak ridge. It was only like 2 feet difference. He was expecting something to be 20 feet tall.
There's more of you guys getting into saddle hunting than ever before, and a common question we always get is how do you get comfortable in a saddle? Because there's so many moving parts. And today I'm gonna give you 3 of the best tips that I have for getting comfortable in the saddle after doing this for about 8.5 years. Number 1 is tether height. Setting your tether at the right height is going to give you extreme comfort, but this is one big reason why you need to practice with it. I like mine right at nose level when I'm standing on the platform. The other is your bridge length. Having an adjustable bridge on your saddle makes it extremely comfortable to fine tune that comfort, and I like mine extended out almost all the way. The third is how you sit in your saddle. Some people like the saddle sitting just below the belt line, which I've done in some saddles in the past. That made it more comfortable. Some are right at the belt line, and some are a little bit above the belt line. Now, having a very comfortable saddle makes it really easy to do all this stuff with less adjustment. And the Lone Star saddle from Latitude Outdoors is that saddle for me personally. I really like the saddle, and I really like the hip pinch reduction system that's built into the saddle that gives me a lot more comfort all day long with less adjustments needed. If you want to check out the Lone Star saddle from Latitude Outdoors, you can go to latitudeoutdoors.com for more information.
One thing we talk about with almost every guest on this show is map scouting. My favorite map scouting tool is LiDAR. If you're unfamiliar, LiDAR is basically like a 3D scan of the Earth's surface. I like to say it kind of takes away all the surprises. LiDAR is now available on onX Hunt on their topography map. If you go to your app right now, click on the topography map, you can flip on that LiDAR feature and boom, it's gonna come on and you're gonna see what I'm talking about. The LiDAR is gonna allow you to see things that are normally hidden from view. This might be ditches, bends and creeks, rocks, old road beds. I personally love old road beds because deer like to walk them. They're great places to find scrapes. They're great camera locations. And before, an old roadbed or an old logging road might be something that you kind of happen upon while you're out scouting or hunting. Well, now with the LiDAR, before I go into an area, I can turn on that LiDAR and I can see exactly where those roadbeds are. Even old logging roads from the 1930s, you can still see them on there. So that allows me to go straight to those spots and check them out. It's just an incredibly helpful tool, and it's available now on onX Hunt. And hey, if you want to get 20% off your onX Elite membership, you can use the promo code SOUTHERN. Like I said, it's going to save you 20%. Go check out that LiDAR feature. You'll be glad you did. Know where you stand with onX Hunt.
that would be me. So let's say you had a guy who's like maybe he's kind of new, kind of not, like he knows his way around the woods good enough to where you don't have to hold his hand, but he's still not real good at hunting yet. And you brought him to one of your areas, what would you tell him to look for if he just wanted to kill a deer that day? Like, what kind of feature would you tell him to go find?
I would definitely try to put him on food,
Mm-hmm.
And whatever happened to be dropping at that time, I'd show him, what to look for. It's really for a guy that walks and got a little common sense about hunting, about reading sign. You can find a hot feed tree in any of these swamps down here. I mean, if water oaks are on fire over at one management area, I guarantee you 40 miles away, they on fire over there as well. I'd teach a new guy first how to identify trees, and then I'd show him, take him to a hot tree with 4 or 5 piles of droppings under it and shoot up acorns everywhere and let him get an idea of what it looks like and go from there.
Another thing that I'm pretty curious about is your thoughts on like wind and scent control and everything. Do you use any like scent control practices?
No, I don't believe there's any way to beat a deer's nose unless the wind. I do wash my clothes in baking soda. I got some of that green soap you buy in town. I forget what you call it. I use that to wash me with, but I often wash in baking soda myself. I wear rubber boots. When I'm going through the woods, I try not to touch anything with my hands, and especially around the tree when I'm going to climb the tree there. I'm really scent cautious around the tree. I never, if I find a feed tree, I never climb on the east or west side of it, because the way I hunt, I always hunt a new spot in the evening first. I'll hunt it in the evening, leave my stand, come back in the morning. If I don't kill nothing, I'll pull out and go somewhere else. I seldom climb the same tree more than those two sets. If it's really on fire, a lot of sign, and I don't have anything else that looks better, I may come back and hunt it, but most of the time not. I don't climb on the east or the west side of the tree. The reason I don't do that, because of the thermals will draw towards the sun. So if I climb on the west side of the tree for an evening hunt, the thermals going away from the tree. If I come back in the morning, well, they're going to be blowing to the tree. So I'll climb whatever's a good wind on the north or south side of my intended target tree, and that way I'm good for thermals either way, morning or evening.
That's something I haven't heard before, but I've also I really don't have much experience hunting your type of areas. So interesting. So in the morning, like for instance, you'll see thermals kind of pulling eastward for the most part, and then in the evening you'll have them pulling westward.
Right.
Okay.
And then if you'll watch in the afternoons, the thermals are going westward towards the sun, and that's considering there's no front of some sort coming, with a wind blowing. If you have a lull in the wind, no matter which way it's blowing, the thermals are going to go towards the sun. It'll draw that way. But when the sun breaks below the trees at deer 30, as you call it, it'll reverse. The wind will reverse and go east, usually for a little while, maybe only for 10 minutes or so. If you pay attention to that next time you hunt, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Interesting.
And so that's why I don't hunt east or west of the. And that's actually Glenn Solomon and I were talking about that once. Pig hunting. We had a really good place. You'd go in there and hunt it, or he would, and he'd go in there and hunt it, and with a good wind in the evenings. And then when it did that reverse, about time for the pigs to come out, and they'd bust him. And and he learned that the hard way, like I did. We both agreed on that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna take that into consideration, because the wind was giving me fits yesterday. It was supposed to be an east wind, and I think it went every single direction except east. I mean, it was one of your typical early season hunts, I guess. Jacob, do you have anything about that thermal discussion?
But I think that's super cool. Like, that is super cool. I'm over here smiling thinking about it, because I'm like, that is something I really want to try to pay attention to. Especially like on those days when it's, relatively calm, like, the wind's under 5 miles an hour or so, and just see how that plays out. Cause that is very fascinating. And I'd love to kind of see that for myself and start paying attention more to that in the evenings and mornings. Yeah, that's super cool. That's super cool, Robert. So, I've got a question, kind of jumping into access. My whole thing is I love talking access, and it listens to the podcast. Robert, when it comes to like hunting, the style of hunting you do on public land, what is your thoughts on access? When we talked to Glenn, he had some very keen thoughts on how he likes to access and his thoughts on it. But what is your thoughts when it comes to access hunting on public land? And do you do anything different than what the average guy probably does?
I probably go farther. I go farther. I go in what some people would consider trash wood, stick stuff. And for a while, I hunted out of the boat, and it's honestly, I mean, you don't have to. In my opinion, I don't like running the river at night. I hunt. There could be two roads going into a certain bottom, and I may take the long way because of the wind. And I think about it not necessarily so much when I'm going in, but if you go in a place and you leave after dark, I want a good wind when I come out, because there's probably deer coming in there right then as you're coming out. I believe you have a better, if deer don't know you've been there, you have a better chance tomorrow. And so I use access. Not necessarily the shortest way is the best sometimes.
So what? Go ahead, Jacob.
No, I was just going to agree. I think that's something that a lot of people do not realize, and I'm guilty myself. When it's a morning hunt or an afternoon hunt, I feel like going in on either one of those, I'm very keen on playing it safe and taking the longest route, whatever works best. But I feel like sometimes in the evenings, and I feel like a lot of guys are like this. You get in a rush. You're like, oh man, I need to get back to the truck. I got to get back to the house, whatever, see the family, everything else, and you start slipping up on the aspect of maybe you're not coming out clean. Maybe you don't necessarily pay attention to the wind. Maybe you're not paying attention to how much noise you're making. So I think that's a really good point. Like you said, is pay a lot of attention, especially on the way out, and make sure you're going to have a good exit route that's not going to blow those deer out, so you can come back and hunt the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that I hunt, I always hunt my first time in a place in the afternoon, and I definitely want to sneak out because I'm going to hunt there the next morning. That's really makes me be careful going out in the afternoon.
I'm curious, what are your thoughts on like making noise? Like, let's say it's a calm day, not much wind, and it's dry like we've been having. One of those days where it's just really, really hard to not make a bunch of noise. What do you do to like minimize your noise, or at least have it make not as big of an impact?
You just have to. I mean, you take your time, and I try not to walk a hard, steady walk. I like to walk a little bit, stop for a second, walk a little bit, stop for a second, kind of break all that up. I mean, because you can make a lot of racket if you just, like I'm going straight to the stand and don't slack up. You can make some noise. But, I pick my way through the woods. And most of the places I hunt have pigs as well, and I'm pig hunting to the stand when I'm going, Just the main thing, take your time. It's a lot safer. And you always, I kill, it's common for me to kill stuff a mile from the truck. And you got to go a mile, so you allow enough time for that. You're really messing your hunting up when you get in a hurry. Take your time. I go back there. I sit in the morning till around 11 o'clock. We wait all season to hunt, so I'm not going to be in a hurry when it's time. I'm gonna enjoy every step of it.
Yeah, man, I think that's something that can't be hit on hard enough, because I am so guilty of that, getting in a hurry and just like, man, I got to get up in the tree. I'm losing daylight. I'm going to get caught trying to get up the tree, whatever. And I get in the biggest rush. And it's funny because the hunts this year that I've like forced myself to really slow down and really think about what I'm doing, those hunts have been my best hunts,
Oh yeah.
Where I can't help but go ahead.
Yeah, it's unsafe. I mean, really, and people do the same thing scouting. They'll be in a hurry scouting. Like I'm just going to run in this bottom and check some places out. And they climb on the first sign they see, and then they sit there that evening and watch deer 75 yards away on a tree that they should have checked before they climbed. They were in too big a hurry. And I mean, I've done that. So, and oftentimes I'll go in the bottom with my stand if I'm sure something's going to be hot in there, but I check a lot of trees before I go up.
I've got a question. Talking about like checking a bunch of trees like that, do you see any disturbance of you walking around in there affecting the deer at all? Especially if you're expecting the deer to possibly come in there within an hour or two of you walking around in that bottom.
No, I mean I wear rubber boots, lacrosse rubber boots, and I can honestly say I can't remember the last time a deer smelled where I walked. I don't use any kind of cover scent or pee on my, no pee on my shoes or nothing like that. And I wanted to, when that deer was in there yesterday eating, I wanted to smell just like that when he comes in there today, and I'm waiting on him. I don't want anything different.
Now, another thing that's kind of came to my mind, do you use calling at all throughout the season ever?
I carry a grunt call with me, and I can honestly say I've grunted some deer up before. I see them going by and grunt real soft, and they turn. And I've rattled a little bit, and I've rattled a deer. I've never killed one that I rattled in, but I've rattled deer in on public land before. The few times I've got them to come in, they came wide open and they were gone just that quick. And I've never killed one rattling like that.
One thing when we were just talking about all this that for something piqued it in my mind was what kind of value do you put on buck sign, and what kind of buck sign do you like to see?
I hunt food, and it's always good, if you can see some big rubs, makes you feel pretty good. At least you know there's a big buck there. But I could care less about buck sign. I hunt food, and if you're hunting a big chestnut and it's got rubs under it and a couple of scrapes, that's pretty good. But most of your scrapes get hit at night, I believe. And I put trail cameras on them a mile in the swamp, expecting to see a lot of daytime movement, and all the pictures will be at night. In a funnel, I like rubs in a funnel. That kind of lets you know, if a funnel, say 75 yards wide, and I'm trying to get into that magic 15, that rub line helps me know exactly where at least that deer's coming through at. But I'm not really a trophy hunter. I want to kill 2 rack bucks every year like everybody else. But I'm not a big buck hunter. I kill what's legal. I'm a deer hunter. I love to see them feathers go through one's ribs.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. Yeah, so that's something I like asking all these different guests that we have, like what kind of buck sign they look for. And one thing that surprised me over these last few weeks is the amount of guys that I've asked that who don't put that much stock on buck sign. And really a lot of them, kind of like yourself, were saying something along the lines of it can be kind of misleading because you see these rubs and scrapes, but I mean, and this is from my experience with those, like, especially scrapes. 90% of the scrapes, like, have no, like, you have to be on a V right scrape, and usually you're within 60 yards of where they're laying down. And that's where you get your daytime movement, which is just, I mean, and every one that I've ever found like that, where I get consistent daylight pictures, are, I mean, just dang near impossible to hunt, just because of how you have to access it and wind and all these other things. So it's definitely interesting to hear you talk about that. One thing that we talked about earlier that I'd definitely like to get a little bit more into is how you were talking about the sloughs that run up into thickets. So when you're pushing into an area like that, do you try to figure out like the exact locations of beds ever?
No.
So you're more just looking for the cover and getting real close to it, and you know the beds are there, but you don't need to know where exactly they're laying, right?
No, I don't. I ease in, and if you bust deer out one time, well, you went too far. And but I ease in, and I look for the crossings on the sloughs. And where they're traveling through, and and common sense tells you if they're going left or right. You look for that, and but that's the late season deal, and I really don't do that a whole lot. That's like there's nothing else working, and let's go in there where they're at.
Mm-hmm. So, out of kind of what we talked about today, or maybe a tactic that we haven't mentioned, over the years, what has been kind of your number one, like, I guess your number one tactic? Like, what do you, like, when you're typically killing deer, what is like the spot where you find it and you're like, yeah, I'm about to kill a deer right here?
Man, that's almost always early on persimmons, on good persimmon years. Mm-hmm. But persimmons in south, I mean, it's different as you go up, but down here there's nothing else feeding, maybe some muscadines. But the water oaks may be just starting, but that is the only thing. They've been eating briars all year, and the persimmons they go crazy for them. I've actually seen does run to them. You be in the stand in the afternoon, the does come out of the thicket, or actually they're yearlings or they're fawns. They come out of the thicket, and the fawns just break and run. They want to get there before mama and eat them persimmons up. But persimmons are good. I mean, you can go to a persimmon tree and you're standing there looking, and maybe 1 or 2 fall while you're standing there. You just start grinning because you're about to kill a deer here.
Mm-hmm.
And you do the same thing on water oaks. I found a water oak last week. I walked under. I knew it was there, and I checked all kind of water oaks before I got to it, and there was nothing. And I got to this water oak, and it looked like you had drug plows underneath that joker, and there were probably a dozen piles of deer droppings on it. And I mean, I killed a deer on it the next day, and then one the next day, or 2 days later.
Man, I can't believe that I haven't asked this question before, but when you're talking about getting close to these thickets and everything, how big does a thicket have to be for you to really look at it and think that it's going to hold, decent deer?
There's basically two different ones that I hunt like that, and the one is probably 50 acres or better, and then there's another one probably half that.
So just like if you had to put a size to it, like how small is too small, do you think?
If the deer can hear you, no matter where you're at around it, then it's too small.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay, so yeah, it's not too uncommon to like kind of, or at least where I'm at, it's not too uncommon to run up on something like a thicket that is like maybe an acre in size. So you would say that's probably a little too small?
Yeah, and if you're anywhere close to it, if there's a deer in there, he knows you're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jacob, you got anything?
No. Well, I've got a question, which Andrew, it's one that you mentioned you wanted to start asking more and more, which is the spot and spot that we did. Who did we do that with? I think that was with
Cody
Smith. Yeah, I was going to see if you wanted to ask that, kind of talking about like spot and spot, kind of breaking down a full hunt.
Yeah. I forgot about that. So yeah, one thing that I'm trying to start asking more when I can remember it is like when you're going into an area, and we've maybe touched on this just a little bit today, but when you go into an area and you find the spot where you're like, okay, there's going to be some deer coming through here later. How do you go about picking the right tree, like as though you're picking quote unquote the spot in the spot where you're setting yourself up for the best possible shot?
Well, the first thing I try to figure out how wide I guess it's a funnel you're talking about, deer coming through there. How wide of a place it is, and the wind direction. And if you go, if you go go climb in the middle of it, and you got a bad wind, well, you've killed half of it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so but I believe, like on a feed tree, it's easy. But if you're looking at a flow area, a place where deer are coming through, you have to. Sometimes you won't kill a deer your first set there. You found a good place to hunt, and you just got to find the right tree by hunting it. And but I try not to go past my wind. I want to climb. I keep working towards the far side of my wind each set until I find the right tree, and then it's usually right from then on.
Yeah. So in other words, you're kind of hanging back on the edge of where it's kind of safe to climb. Like if you let's just say you've got like a 50-yard wide funnel that runs east to west, and you're on the south side of it with a north wind. You'll sit that very southern edge of that funnel, and if they're coming out on the other side, then you might push north and kind of let your wind blow through half of that funnel if you've seen at that point that the deer aren't really using that side of it.
Yeah, I do something like that. I hunt high percentage things, and a funnel. The first time you set it is not high percentage. You more or less scouting it with your first set. I've heard Mr. Warren say a look and see hunt, and then you go from there on funnels and flow areas.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're doing kind of an observation set where you're hanging back where you might kill one right there, but really you're trying to just observe and see what's going on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're shooting a long range weapon where you're killing them the first time, but I'm narrowing it down to a 15-yard shot.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be really careful.
When you're going into a spot, when do you think you've boogered up a spot too bad that you won't return to it? Is there something that you could do or something that happens where you're like, this area is kind of shot, I probably shouldn't come back?
Well, if I've touched too much stuff with my hands or clothes, I can get away with a lot if the only thing touching the ground is my rubber boots. Then I don't feel good hunting it. If I've if I've killed a deer there, and then I'll if I kill a deer in the evening, I'll go hunt it in the morning and maybe kill one in the morning. But I bone my animals out where they fall, and I want the big buzzards flapping and all that on the carcass, that's boogered up from there for me then. And if I've get busted, if the wind's got me a couple of times, then I'll quit hunting. A lot of people have a place that they go hunt and they say maybe see deer or come in contact with deer every time they see it, but they get busted every time because of the wind or whatever, and they keep going back simply because they see or hear deer every time, but they never kill one. You want to kill deer, you quit hunting them places. You waste your whole vacation time seeing and hearing deer all week, but you got busted every time and you didn't shoot nothing. So leave those places alone and go on and find another spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. When you're up in the tree, if your wind switches and it starts blowing in the direction that you think the deer would come from, do you get down and adjust, or you just ride it out?
To be honest, most of the time I ride it out. If it's, like I said, I only hunt a place the evening and the morning, and usually move. And if it's a funnel, I don't really like. I don't want to sit there and ruin a funnel.
What about when you get busted in the stand? Like, let's say, like what happened to me yesterday. A freaking doe smells you and blows at you for 45 minutes. Do you consider that spot shot?
No. A lot of times if I get busted by one, I blow back at them. But I've had deer under me before with another deer over there blowing like 50 yards away, and the deer under me don't even pay it any attention.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened to me yesterday. I had a buck like within bow range, and this doe behind me started flipping out because she smelled me, and that buck just kind of went about his business eating acorns all up in the thick stuff.
Yeah.
Jacob, you got anything on that?
None on that, but one thing I want to touch on, I can't believe I forgot it until Robert, you mentioned it again, but you've been quartering and packing out deer and boning out deer for a long time. How long had you been doing that?
Probably 20 years.
See, me and Andrew talked about a few years ago that we had never heard or seen anyone do that in the Southeast. But again, I'm going to call you like one of the OG guys doing it, boning out and packing out deer, and I guess hogs too. What kind of got you to that point? Was it because you're going in so deep that just dragging wasn't worth it, or what did that come to?
Well, man, it's just you drag the deer or hog all the way home, to the truck, get him home, skin him, and then haul all that mess off back to the woods.
That's what I say.
I'm not the smartest guy, but that don't make any sense. And plus it gives, when hunting public land, we're trying to get away from people. A lot of people don't go deep because getting the animal out is a big problem for them. And you can get your normal deer that you kill down here. I killed a 10-point. That's one of the deer I killed out of the funnel I was telling you earlier about. And a friend of mine, Alan Oliver, he was hunting not far from me, and he came in. I told him I stand out. Came back before I trailed the deer, and he came with me, and he was like amazed. I guess he never seen anybody pack a deer out like that. And I had just a backpack that you get from Bass Pro, and the whole deer fit in it. I boned out the deer. And like 175, 80-pound buck. I boned him out and put him in the backpack and cut his head off, and we were gone. He's like, man, that would have killed me to have to get this deer out of here. I said, no, we're going hunting this evening.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I remember packing my first one out, and I was like, man, I could have saved my back a lot of trouble if I'd been doing this for all these years. Because, personally, to me, which people have laughed at me before for saying this because they've never done it. But, man, packing a deer out is 1,000 times easier than dragging one out. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you do. It is easier, straight up. If you can put that weight and just walk and not have to drag it and have it get hung up on every tree and everything.
Yeah, I remember killing a small buck once close to a mile in the swamp. Before I was packing him out, and I naturally I gutted him, and I pulled his horns up around my belt and tied him around my waist and drug him a mile like that. All the hair was gone off his hip. It looked like he got hit by a car or something. I was thinking about that. Actually, the last time I was in those woods, you go by these places where you've killed deer before and relive all that. And I was thinking, man, that little deer like to kill me.
Yeah, I've had a few drags that almost broke my will. I was just like, I'm an idiot for trying to drag this thing. Because I used to hunt, or I still do hunt it, but I hunt a place that, I mean, they're not necessarily like mountains, but we got some steep daggum hills on that place. And I distinctly remember one time dragging a doe up this hill where I'm taking like 3 steps at a time and then stopping, and I'm just like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
It gets hard, but so I know that you hunt a lot of places that are way far off a road, but are there any spots that you hunt that are kind of close to roads, maybe more overlooked areas?
Oh yeah. I hunt a lot of places that are. I got a couple of really hot spots that are like 100 yards off the road.
What are those spots like? Why are people not going in there?
They're really thick drains, and it's like from the road you look at it, and it's like a nightmare. And one of them I actually step off where the culvert's at there in the road and walk the edge of the water. And once you go back there a little bit, it opens out into a beautiful place with a big water oaks there. I climbed. We didn't have water oak acres here last year. The year before that, I climbed in one of them and saw 3 bucks and 2 does in one afternoon. And I'd already killed a small buck, so I had to let the 2 small bucks run around all under me. And a really good rack buck was the last one to come through, and it felt too far. It was the light was getting low, and there were 2 does standing there while he was going through, so I didn't shoot the does. Then the next morning, when I hunted, I didn't see anything. I went back and got my stand out, and I stepped it off, and the big buck was 29 yards. It's a little too far for me to shoot at, but it's a good hunt anyway. And I ended up hunting somewhere else, and I didn't go back to it.
Yeah. And spots like that, or is there typically like a parking lot, or are you just pulling over on the side of the road and just winging it?
I almost always pull past it, and I usually park on the other side of the road. We had to play these mind games. Had to play mind games with these guys hunting around here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm right there with you. I've done that before for sure. Like especially when I'm looking at it, like it seems like an obvious spot, but maybe to other people it's not. But I'm still like nervous about it, and I'll like try and throw people off with how I park too. I've done that several times.
Yeah, I hunted with a real funny story. I hunted with a guy once, and we pulled into this little. There's a bunch of little walking roads on these management areas here to walk in only. He pulled right there and he got out and he unrolled a handful of toilet paper and threw it down. Unrolled a handful of toilet paper. He had like 4 or 5 piles out there around. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Man, somebody will come through here and they'll think this is getting hunted to death."
Dang, I'm using that. Tennessee, get ready. I just probably let her. I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I got to thinking about it one day. You pull up to a place and it looks like people have relieved themselves in the morning before they go hunting. All them piles of toilet paper out there. Man, I ain't hunting here. Everybody's going in here.
Get you some melted Hershey chocolate bar.
Oh, son!
Make it realistic.
You heard it here first, folks. This is a new tactic, man. I'm gonna do that. You better believe I'm gonna do that. That's smart.
Yeah, that's a teacher.
Jacob, you got anything on the overlooked spots?
Not really, because you kind of touched on parking and kind of like what you're looking for in some of those areas. I mean, pretty much all overlooked spots like that are close to roads is just going to be extremely thick. That kind of keeps people deterred from it. I mean, pretty much, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, pretty much, I think we covered that, at least to my liking. When it comes to when it kind of going back to access, this kind of hit me. Are you ever using like waders or hip waders at all in any of these areas?
I have used waders before.
Gotcha. Is that something that you feel like also deters people if they have to use, that kind of equipment to be able to get back to a spot?
Yeah, 90% of your hunters is not going to do that. And I mean, you cross a body of water, usually you got that place to yourself.
Well, if we get some rain, we might have to do that. But the way it's been looking right now in Alabama, I don't think we're going to have to do that in late October.
Yeah, it's got me bummed out.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, other than that, I think you pretty much answered all the questions I've thought about for, your area of your hunting. Maybe, I mean, we also kind of just whenever your whole setup on archery equipment, shooting traditional archery. One thing I can ask, if there was a guy, again, if you were going to give any kind of advice to any of our listeners about just the region of the country you hunt in, what is like the biggest piece of advice that you think that would help them out, at least get started hunting public land in your area?
You gotta scout and do it when it's not deer season, not when you're in a hurry to go climb a tree. Yet pick your the way I learn a new piece of property is a block at the time, and I usually try to get the thickest block first. But I learned the lay of the land, walk the sloughs, walk the little roads, and a GPS is a one fine thing. I mean, you can go in, you find something really hot, mark it, then drive around the block, find the best way in with a good wind. We've all done that before, where you walk through this place and you say, man, I'm a long ways from the road. This is a really good place to hunt. And you hear a car go by like 100 yards away. And had come out on the other side of the road, sort of, you know what I mean? But scouting preseason, and the best time to scout is January and February. All the leaves are gone. You can see the lay of the land. You can find the persimmons because they're black. You can find the swamp chestnuts because they white shaggy bark. They're easy to spot. You can see the old scrapes. You can see the trees that were really good feed trees because the ground will still be tore up under them. And you remember all them. And then when it's August, you go in there with your binoculars and see which one of those trees you found had got fruit on them. And you already got you some good places to hunt. You just got to come follow up on them.
Boom. That's what I'm talking about. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Robert, man, we definitely appreciate you coming by and helping us out here, because I definitely need help with my deer season. I've been struggling a little bit, and I'm super interested to try that thermal thing out that you were talking about. But man, I hope you have a great rest of your deer season, and I hope it ends as good as it started.
All right, it will. I hope so. Anyway, I'll be after them, having fun with it, regardless.